It's time to sound off. Welcome to Sound Off Sports. On today's show, we're breaking down everything that happened with NFL free agency. We're starting with your thoughts when it comes to that crazy running back market. And a little later on, we're talking about Kirk Cousins and that QB deal he got down in Atlanta. And later on, we're also hearing some stuff from the boxing world. Yes, we're getting a preview on a few big fights coming up with the CEO of Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellerbe. But first, we got to start with all that craziness from the running backs running wild in free agency. Let's go.
Make some noise. This is Sound Off Sports.
Welcome to Sound Off Sports. I'm your host, Mike Davis. I'm joined now by my producer, James Edward Barrickman, the fourth. Guys, it was a crazy NFL free agency. It got started a little earlier than the official start of free agency with all that tampering stuff, but that's okay. We still love to see it. Now, obviously, the big talk of the town when it comes to everything in free agency was what's going on with this crazy running back market. James, we asked people at home what they thought about some of these big signings. What did we hear?
Hey, Mike, Andre Hall here. That must be a trick question. There is no doubt that Derrick Henry will have the biggest impact.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. For a guy who was considered to have a down year last year, Derrick Henry still had 12 TDs, almost 1,200 rushing yards. He did lead the league in carries. And even though he's 30, listen, he's built different. He's a former Heisman Trophy winner, but he just runs the ball differently. I think when you get a guy like that and you put him on a roster that's competitive, that needs a little bit more on that offense with Lamar and everything the Ravens have, I think it's a great deal for both sides. What about you?
I think it's a good deal. I just don't know if he's going to be the most impactful. He's definitely going to have an impact. But as you mentioned, he's 30. He is Derrick Henry. He's built different. They call him Tractorcito for a reason. But he's 30 years old. They already have two backs that they like in Keaton Mitchell, who had a great year last year, and also Justice Hill. So I think he's going to have an impact. I just don't know if he's going to be the most impactful of all these running backs that we saw.
But I do like Keaton Mitchell and Henry. You do a little bit of the pitter-patter. You get the power with the speed. Smash and dash. I like that. All right, what else did people say?
I think Derrick Henry definitely going to have the best because they're going to feed him a lot. Lamar Jackson is generational talent, so, eventually he's going to start throwing that rock because he got somebody to fall back on, a good running back in Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, so King Henry's definitely getting a love from everybody at home. Out of all the deals, Tony Pollard, Saquon Barkley, Eckler, all the movement that we saw moving around Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs, I mean, it's fascinating that everybody really loves the Derrick Henry thing. And I think it is a good combination of his talent and the situation. I feel the same way about Saquon as well. But overall, it's just a fascinating thing to see the love, I think, for Derrick Henry, especially as he's creeping up in age.
I agree. And like I said, he's going to have an impact. But I think the guy who's going to have the biggest impact is your boy Saquon in Philly. I'm a huge Saquon Barkley fan. I think he's the most talented back in the league. I'm glad he's getting out of New York because it felt like they were wasting his career there.
Right.
Philly, good organization. They know how to use him. Saquon's a guy who can do everything, run between the tackles, catch out of the backfield. And I think his presence is really going to help Jalen Hurts, who kind of took a step back last year.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not going to argue with you at all, but guess what? It's time for Sink or Swim, and we're going to be getting into this crazy running back market right now. Yeah, so we heard all the love for Derrick Henry, and of course my guy James and I, we both love the Saquon deal. But when you think about what happened in NFL free agency, a lot of guaranteed money, a lot of big contracts for guys on the defensive line. We saw that obviously in the Chris Jones deal, the Danielle Hunter deals, a lot of these edge rushers, defensive tackles, those are the guys that are making big money. Even Bryce Huff with the Eagles, a guy who went undrafted, is getting a $51 million contract. So when you're looking at NFL free agency and you're thinking, wow, look at all these running back deals, look at all this movement, it's kind of a yin and yang kind of thing. It looks like there's a lot of hope placed upon this running back position. We saw a year ago all these big running backs like Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, all these guys, Eckler, they all got on the Zoom call to talk about the state of the running back position. And a lot of people think it might be in a downturn. And then you look at NFL free agency and you see how much movement is going on. To me, I still think it speaks volumes to how NFL executives are really considering this running back position? Because to me, I don't think if you really highly viewed the running back position, you wouldn't let Aaron Jones go interdivision from Green Bay to Minnesota. You wouldn't let Saquon leave the Giants and stay in the NFC East and go to Philadelphia. To me, I think that speaks volumes. And if you really look at these deals, a lot of these GMs and teams can get out of these deals very quickly. The Josh Jacobs deal, that was the only deal that was over 3 years, right? So it was a 4-year deal. I mean, he's basically getting $12.5 million guaranteed. They can be out of that deal in 1 year. I still think it's crazy to see the disrespect that the running back position is getting. Last year we saw in free agency, the biggest contract was Miles Sanders getting a 4-year deal around $25 million from the Panthers at $13 million guaranteed. We saw how that floundered, right? We saw that did not turn out well. What if the Panthers did have a great running back there? How much more help would that have been for Bryce Young when he's starting off as the first pick of the draft as a rookie QB? So to me, overall, my sentiment is we can't devalue the running back position that much. I think, like James said, Saquon going from a team all those years with the Giants where they had the 31st run block win rate, going to Philadelphia where they had the first run block win rate, for a guy with his talent, it's going to take that offense to a new level. It's going to take his skill set to a new level. So what we saw, recapping this NFL free agency market with running backs, we saw a lot of incentive deals. We saw a lot of teams moving off players as they got older. Even Aaron Jones, who's 29, Green Bay gets off him to go to Jacobs, who's 26. So yes, there is a little bit of ageism. There is a lot of incentive-based deals. But I think at the end of the day, teams who pay up for premier talent at that position, like the Ravens, like Philadelphia and the Eagles, they're going to be very happy with the outcome and what we see happen. Coming up a little later, we're talking more about some of our favorite free agency deals between James and I. But up first, we got a little bit more sound off for you after a short break.
You're watching Sound Off Sports.
Well, everybody's talking about the big Netflix fight between Iron Mike Tyson and, yes, Jake Paul. I had to hear a little bit about that, plus this big fight that's happening in T-Mobile on the weekend of March 30th. We're talking with Leonard Ellerbe, the CEO of Mayweather Promotions. Let's hear what he had to say. Leonard, great to have you with us. Let's talk about a lot of stuff happening in the boxing world. First of all, we're going to be getting into the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson stuff, but let's start here. March 30th, we got a big fight. It's the pay-per-view fight that's happening on Amazon Prime Video. We got to talk about Tim Tszyu and Keith Thurman. I mean, these guys, big-time fight. What do we need to know as boxing fans about this big matchup?
Well, it's a tremendous matchup. You have a young, hungry lion in Tim Tszyu, who's from Australia. He's put together a series of wins, so he's making some noise in the sport of boxing, and he's right now at the top of his game. And Keith Thurman, you know, he's a veteran in this game. He's been around for quite some time. The naysayers and the haters, as I call them, they've been kind of upset because he hadn't been as active as he would have liked to. But the other flip side to that, his body's well preserved. He is a tremendous boxer, has a lot of experience. He's been in there with some top-level competition, and I fully expect him to be able to get the job done on the 30th of March and pull off the tremendous upset against the young, hungry lion, Tim Tszyu.
Beyond that, we also got Romero versus Cruz. Tell us what we need to know about that fight.
Well, that's also a tremendous matchup. You got Rolly Romero, who's a Mayweather Promotions fighter. And again, we think the world of Rolly. He's going to be defending his WBA 140-pound title against Isaac Cruz, who's a tough Mexican fighter. He's a pressure fighter. People know him from giving Tank a good fight. He didn't, there were the haters out there saying that he won the fight. But no, Tank beat him easy. but Tank also had a hurt hand. But again, I expect that to be a tremendous fight. But I expect my guy to finish him off at some point in the fight will not go the distance.
July 20th, Netflix is putting on this big fight between Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. I mean, this is pretty crazy. A 27-year-old versus a 57-year-old. And of course, one of the best boxers of all time. Something like this. Obviously, it's good for the fans. It's good for the sport to have a platform like Netflix and to have two superstars colliding like this. What was your initial reaction when you saw and you heard this news?
Great move. It can't do nothing but, bring more eyeballs to the sport. And I publicly said that was a great move by Jake and Mike too. Because at the end of the day, it's just entertainment. It's entertainment. Thinking outside the box. I love the idea of bringing that to Netflix. It was a tremendous idea, and I think it's going to pay big dividends.
All right, my man, Leonard Ellerbe, thanks so much. Guys, coming up next, we got to talk about the big QB deal, perhaps the biggest deal in free agency. Yes, Kirk Cousins signing that massive contract to go to ATL. We're breaking it down. We're hearing what you have to say. That's after the break. All right, welcome back to Sound Off Sports. Now we got to talk about this dude, Kirk Cousins. I mean, whether you love him, whether you hate him, this guy has made a lot of money, a lot of dough in the NFL. I'm bringing in James Edward Barabin IV to talk more about this. So, James, we asked everybody at home what they thought about Kirk Cousins and this big deal for him to go to Atlanta. Do you think he can push them over the top and take them to the playoffs? Let's hear what people had to say.
This first one is from Calvin Joyner via Facebook. He says, Mr. Pick Six with remarkable regular season statistics. He'll win 12 to 14 games, then lose the first round of the playoffs.
I mean, listen, it's probably right, actually. Maybe a little less than 12 or 14 in my opinion, but yeah, they probably will get bounced out of the first round of the playoffs. But I actually still think it's a good deal. Listen, QBs get paid a lot of money in this league. He has a lot of weapons there. I think you're going to see breakout year from Drake London. I think you're going to see the best year ever from Kyle Pitts, the tight end. It's a massive upgrade. You can't tell me Desmond Ridder is a better situation than Kirk Cousins.
No, I agree. I think Kirk Cousins will get them to the playoffs. They'll at least be in the mix with the Bucs and potentially the Saints to win that division. But Cousins, like you said, upgrades them and puts them squarely in the NFC playoff picture. You have Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and I really, really like their OC. You know this, Zach Robinson,
right,
coming over from LA. He's from that McVay tree, and I think Cousins will really kind of bring this all together, and at the end of the season, you'll see them at least in the playoff conversation, and as Calvin mentioned, probably get bounced in the first round if they do make it.
Calvin's probably right there. All right, What else did people say?
This next one is from @JRod702_LV via X. He says, heck no, they should have gotten Justin Fields. Cousins is very overrated.
That is an interesting opinion there. I mean, would you rather have Fields or Kirk Cousins in that situation?
I think at the price, I don't know what Chicago's asking for,
right,
but at the price that they're probably going to have to offer at this point, I would take Fields. I just think that Cousins has a high floor but a lower ceiling, and what they give him, 4 years, $180 million.
Yeah.
I would rather pay a second and a fourth or whatever it's going to be for Fields than what you had to pay for Cousins.
And it's almost the inverse because Fields is like, a high ceiling with,
exactly.
But to me, I think this is really the insight here is the division, right? The NFC South, like with Kirk Cousins as your QB and the weapons that they have, the running game with Bijan Robinson, a decent defense, Raheem Morris has this, the synergy that carrying over from when Cousins was with Washington. I don't know. I mean, I think it's almost like one of those things. If Kirk Cousins is your quarterback in the NFC South, you're in a good place. That might be a better situation. I'd rather have him than Baker, wouldn't you?
I think I would disagree. I'd probably rather have Baker, and again, because of the price. They're paying Baker way less than what they're giving Kirk Cousins. And for me, it's like, Kirk Cousins is going to keep you in contention in this division, but you're not going to be contending with the big dogs in the NFC like San Fran, like Detroit, like Philly, when you're paying Kirk Cousins that much money.
Yeah, it's true. So you either have to figure out what you're going to do, and they're doing one of those things where they're going for it. They're not trying to, tank to get the QB next year or trade up to get a QB this year. So it is a fascinating situation. Guys, coming up after a short break, guess what we're doing? We're actually picking our favorite and our least favorite free agency deals. Yeah, James and I are going head to head. We got a lot of interesting insight coming up after a short break.
You're watching Sound Off Sports.
All right, welcome back to Sound Off Sports. Now we got the best and the worst of NFL free agency. We're going to do it like Mike and James edition. So I'm going to bring in James Edward Barrickman, the fourth right now. So James, let's start out with your favorite, the best signing you feel from NFL free agency.
So I'm going to sound like a homer on this one, born and raised in Pittsburgh guy. But to me, I really think the best free agent signing was Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. And
I thought you were going to say Patrick Queen.
No, I love the Patrick Queen signing too, but I really think it's Russell Wilson because of what you're getting at the price. So for the Steelers, they've had a mess at quarterback the past 2 seasons. You significantly upgrade that for $1.2 million. You're basically getting him for free, and you didn't have to give up any draft capital or any pieces to get him. And so I really just love the bargain of it, right?
So we're talking value. You and me are so biased, by the way, because
100%.
I'm going with Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles. Listen, to me, I think it's once in a blue moon you get the opportunity to bring in a guy with that level of talent. Saquon Barkley coming out of Penn State, second pick of the draft. This guy was phenomenal, and situation-wise, he never really got to reach the heights that I think people thought he was because, listen, he was running behind a bad offensive line in New York. So he's going from a team that had the 31st worst, or best run block offensive line to the team with the first best run block offensive line. So I think for him, the synergy between him, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts, and that whole dynamic, it's going to be special for that organization. They paid him a lot of money. It goes up to incentives, almost $47 million in incentives he can get, but $26 million guaranteed. It's a major upgrade from DeAndre Swift, so I love that. Tell me, what do you think about the worst signing in free agency?
So we were just talking about it, but to me, it's Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. And it's not because I don't like Kirk Cousins or that I don't think that they're upgrading their quarterback situation as well. It just felt like a lot of money to give a 36-year-old quarterback coming off a season-ending Achilles injury and also a guy who has one career playoff win. You're not signing a 36-year-old Aaron Rodgers. You're not signing a 36-year-old Tom Brady. You're getting 36-year-old Kirk Cousins. And to me, it'll probably get you to the playoffs and it'll keep you in contention in that very poor division.
Right.
But it's not going to get you over the hump and, put you in a place to compete for the NFC with the Niners, Detroit, and Philly. So to me, it feels like a bad organization desperate to find what they had in Matt Ryan for all those years.
Yeah, it's true. And you know what's unfortunate? I mean, Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, he wants to win, and it's evident. And you can't blame a guy for going out and paying up for a QB. But yes, it's one of those things that it could set the franchise back many years with that price tag that you have to pay. But what do you do? I mean, you either have an elite QB, one of the guys who can take you over the top and beat a Patrick Mahomes, or you don't have that guy. I don't think Kirk Cousins is that guy, and it's a shame to have to pay that price for a guy like that.
To that point, Kirk Cousins isn't Patrick Mahomes. And you might not think that Justin Fields is Patrick Mahomes, but you still really don't know. He has that kind of elite electricity. But for that, the price you could have got Fields at, I would have just rather had Fields.
Right, but it's one of those. It's the age-old question. What do you do if you're a have-not organization in the NFL and you don't have the Josh Allen, you don't have the Justin Herbert, you don't have the Jalen Hurts, you don't have Mahomes? What do you do? Do you stay with a Desmond Ridder and just kind of play it off without a guy with a contract-friendly deal, or do you team-friendly deal, or do you pay it up And that's what's the weird thing. So I think it's fascinating the Vikings moved off of him, and we'll see what's going to happen there. I have an interesting thing here for the worst contract or free agency deal, and it's actually not a signing, it's a trade. I want everybody at home, this is probably the best defensive edge player that you don't know that truly is a remarkable talent, and it's Brian Burns. Okay, so Brian Burns, out of the NFL, out of the first 5 seasons, guys who have had at least 7.5 sacks in their first 5 seasons, there's like a very short list for people who have achieved this. It's like Reggie White, Derek Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Aaron Donald, a bunch of Hall of Famers and a few other guys, and Brian Burns. Okay, so this guy gets traded from Carolina to the New York Giants. Now he's going to be playing up and facing off with Dexter Lawrence, and as well as Thibodeau, the big top draft pick from a couple years ago. So this guy signs a 5-year, $150 million deal with 88 guaranteed. What did the Giants actually have to trade to get this guy? Literally a 2nd and a 5th round pick, where last year the Rams had offered 2 firsts, 16 months ago, 2 firsts and a 2nd. Carolina's got to be the worst organization in the NFL. It's almost blasphemous.
That situation really, since Cam Newton left, has just deteriorated into what you see today.
Yeah, bad ownership, and it's crazy. So to me, yes, a lot of free agency deals being struck all around, but to me that was the most obvious negative that I saw from a team when it came to free agency this year. But guys, this is what Sound Off Sports is all about. We always got you covered on this show with everything happening in the sports world. I want to thank you for joining us. My man, James Edward Barrettman IV, joined us today with some great insight. Of course, he loves the Saquon Barkley deal. You got to love that. We're going to see what happens with Russell Wilson and his Pittsburgh Steelers. Guys, we'll see you next time on Sound Off Sports. Make sure you send us an email and give us a buzz when we ask those great questions on social media. We always want to hear from you. We'll see you next time on Sound Off Sports.